David, this blockade has now been in effect for an hour, and the White House confirming it's a go. It's happening. Bring us the very latest.
So what the White House is saying is that there was some change in the announcement yesterday. First, the president said all ships of any nation going anywhere in the Gulf are going to be blocked. It sounds like someone went to him and said the focus should be Iran. So the way this will work is it's only ships going to Iran and coming out of Tehran that will be stopped by the U.S. Navy. The problem with this strategy is that I just spoke to a diplomat in the Gulf also. Other ships are now afraid to move as well. Ships from, Kuwait or the UAE aren't going to make this trip because there's rumors that there are mines in those waters. Like so far, this hasn't caused a great reopening for non-Iranian ships. So, and then the second problem with this is that Iran has diversified its economy. It's not so dependent on oil sales and things coming in and out by ship. There's land trade routes. So my sense is the Iranian regime will not back down. This blockade will start and they won't back down. I
think a lot of people are thinking, wasn't there already a blockade? Isn't that what the president was trying to remove? And so now we're just adding to that? Is that what's happening here?
It was a small number of ships, 4, maybe 8 a day going through, many of them carrying Iranian crude. But again, Iran has been bombed, intensively for a month. So I just don't see this strategy leading to, some quick concessions from Iran.
Laura, what is the White House expecting, given it appears the United States is going alone at this blockade with allies like the UK and Spain saying they will not assist? President Trump is saying, quote, we're fully locked and loaded and our military will finish up the little that is left of Iran. So where do things stand in the White House this morning?
Well, they're moving forward with this blockade. But that being said, I asked the White House which countries, if they could give us a list of which countries are potentially going to be helping the U.S. with this blockade, and they didn't respond with any answer on that. And so ultimately, again, the president appears to be going alone in this area. I know there is a question of whether or not Gulf states ultimately help the U.S., but right now, as you outlined, those key European countries are saying that they're not going to help. And the president just last night, as he was returning to the White House, was again attacking those allies, attacking NATO. Take a listen.
I'm very disappointed in NATO. They didn't do that. They weren't there for us. We pay trillions of dollars for NATO, and they weren't there for us.
And many of those European countries, their populations don't necessarily support this war, especially in those two countries you mentioned, the UK and in Spain. There's polling in both of those countries that show that the public does not want their leaders to help the U.S. or to get involved in any actions against Iran, Anna.
General, how difficult will maintaining this blockade be for the U.S. military? How does it even work?
Well, the Navy certainly has the capacity, and they've already put a couple of destroyers through the Strait of Hormuz, in and out of the Strait of Hormuz. So they are establishing channels through which there can be safe passage. So that's number one. And number two, the Navy knows how to do that, certainly in concert with the Marines once they arrive on station. It is part of their job jar. I mean, that's what they do. Their mine countermeasure capabilities are very, very extensive, and that's subsurface to above the surface capabilities. So if the real issue is to increase the flow as it was in advance of Epic Fury, it's going to take some time. But as David has indicated, Iran has also figured out over the course of years, that oil is very fungible. Russia has figured out the fungibility of oil. It can go in different routes. And so is this necessarily, if at the strategic level, the desire is to create an immense amount of pressure on Tehran? I think it does, but can they work their way around it? Are there ways that they can mitigate this pressure? And the answer is yes, they've figured that out. And I think what the United States obviously is trying to do is say, look, we're going to take the momentum, we're going to take the initiative, we'll ensure what comes through and what doesn't come through. And again, there are tons of details associated with what that looks like, but it's manageable. Other nations should get involved, could get involved, but that's not a defining factor. That's not a limiting factor in terms of how to get it done.
Iranian officials have already said that they have large untouched levers to counter any naval blockade. Stephen, how do you see them responding to this?
Well, let's start by saying that the Iranians are often full of a lot of bluster. But I think what's been clear over the course of the last 5.5 to 6 weeks is that as the president escalates and tries to ratchet up the pressure on the Iranians have countered with drone strikes, missile strikes, and cruise missile strikes on America's partners around the region. So that is likely what the Iranian response will be to the American attempt to blockade Iranian ports and ships making their way for Iran. That is shouldn't be a surprise to anybody at this point, and there are already concerns in Israel that the Iranians are planning a very significant offensive in response to this blockade.
The president continues to issue more and more threats. That seems to be his go-to tactic, Stephen, with just this morning him saying, you know, any of these fast attack ships would be eliminated. And the fast attack ships, he said, are these much smaller ships, not the big Iranian Navy ships. But as we all recall, ahead of the ceasefire, the president made a very controversial statement threatening to end an entire civilization. And he is defending that statement and this strategy. Take a listen.
That statement got them to the bargaining table, and they haven't left. They haven't left the bargaining table. I predict they come back and they give us everything we want.
Stephen, do you agree with any of that?
It seems to me this is part of a pattern where the president, again, escalates and the Iranians respond, and then the president either has to escalate or look for another way out. I'm not entirely sure that the Iranians begged for the negotiation. After all, they believe they are winning this conflict. And in fact, they are in a better position strategically now having control over the Strait of Hormuz than they were on February 27th. There are indications that there are continuing to be conversations, indirect conversations, contact between the Pakistanis and the Iranians, contact between the Saudis and the Iranians. So there may yet still be something to salvage out of the Islamabad meeting. But of course, all the issues on the table will take a very, very long time to negotiate. So I think that we're going to be in this pattern of threats to escalation, Iranian responses, the president threatening once again for quite some time.
Meantime, David, you have some new reporting on China coming to Iran's defense. What are you learning?
And this was initially a CNN report. It's just confirming what they said. I want to be fair to them. That China has been preparing, they haven't done this yet, to send shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles to Iran. And those weapons could be used to shoot down low-flying American aircraft. As viewers remember, 2 U.S. aircraft were shot down unexpectedly, about 10 days ago. So if that shipment went through, that would be a significant escalation. The concern is that would China start backing Iran? Would Russia start backing Iran? And I just had a contact, an expert on Iran, who's speaking with folks in Tehran. And what's being said there or heard there is that the government there is considering responding to this blockade with military actions of its own, that the Iranian government is thinking of doing that. A blockade is an act of war. So by setting up this blockade, that is what President Trump has done. And I agree with Stephen and everyone this morning. It's the president escalating, and Iran seems to respond with its own escalation. This has happened over and over for the last 5 weeks. So I don't know how this is going to play out.
But China potentially inserting itself.
Yes.
I mean, what's in it for China? Is it all about Iran's oil that they need, or is there something more here going on?
There's more. I mean, I think that stakes for China in this conflict are enormous. Bluntly speaking, I think there's still a good chance for a deal before the ceasefire expires next Tuesday. I don't think the U.S. will achieve all of its goals. If the U.S. fails to secure Iran's uranium, fails to, prevent Iran from gaining control of the Strait of Hormuz, that weakens the United States on the world stage, and China gains from that. An erratic U.S. war plan, a massive U.S. bombing effort that doesn't cause this regime to fall makes, again, the U.S. look worse. And I think China wants to move into this vacuum that's being created as the U.S. alienates allies and has wars like this that don't seem to go well.
General, your thoughts on China helping with Iran's defense potentially?
Well, I would say China has already provided support to Iran, primarily in terms of intelligence gathering and targeting, very specific targeting access. They also have immense cyber capabilities, which is a good source of intelligence collection as well. True, as David indicated, a blockade is an act of war, but we've been at war with Iran for the last 5+ weeks. That's a distinction without a difference. I see the application of force there is, again, to ensure safe passage, or at least to control what comes through and what doesn't come through. I can only estimate that at the strategic level, that if China were to provide access to provide those capabilities, that would be a threat to U.S. presence in the region. That would be an immense escalation. That takes this over to an entirely different level. And then the other thing is, as we go through this, bear in mind, we have the arrival of a ton of Marine forces with the capability, primarily in my mind, not to assert across the shore with some grand mission, but it's a possibility to use those capabilities to ensure the security of the highly enriched uranium, which is absolutely critical at this point.